This conference will now be recorded.
I'm ready.
Okay, so we'll open the regular meeting of the Planning Commission, Tuesday, August the 11th. Can we please have the roll call?
Bruce Francis,
I'm here.
Christopher Farrar,
Present.
John Orr,
Present.
Lam Kwong,
Here.
Myrna Patrick,
Present.
Nadia Gardner, Robert Strickland, Gail Henriksen.
All right, present.
Here.
Nadia.
Okay, and I am also present. That's everyone.
Well, that's everyone but Robert, I take it, right?
Yep, everyone but Robert.
Okay, thank you. So I'll take a motion in a second on the minutes, July the 14th, 2020. Has everybody looked at those?
I have looked at the minutes and I move that we approve the minutes of the July 14th meeting of the Planning Commission as presented.
Second.
And second, okay, be moved and seconded to approve the minutes of July the 14th, 2020 as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I guess it'll be unanimous. Thank you. So
Chair,
now we're on to,
I think we skipped the agenda adoption, didn't we?
okay, we'll go back to that. Thank you very much for jumping on me on that one. We'll take a motion then and a second to adopt the agenda as presented.
I move to adopt the agenda. Nadia.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Hearing none, that will be unanimous. So now there's an opportunity for anybody, business from the public, to give a brief presentation about land use issue or county concern that's not on the agenda. Gal, do we have anybody signed up to make a presentation?
We do not.
Okay. Hearing none, then we'll go on to the code consolidation and modernization.
Okay, there was a presentation on August 4th during the Board of Commissioners work session on that project. It was mainly to introduce them to the concept of what we were trying to do and to give them the summary of the, not changes, but the consolidations that have been made. The strike through underline format of the combination of the two documents is still being reviewed by County Council. And once she has completed her review, then it'll be scheduled for 2 public hearings before the Board of Commissioners. And I do not have a date for that yet.
Okay, so we presently have a county council that's up to speed now. Our new county council is across all this.
Yes, she started April 1st and she has been diligently working on this.
Good.
It's over 600 pages that she's reviewing, so.
Yeah,
Can I ask a question on that?
absolutely.
Or may I? The review by the council is that strictly to see that the way things were reworded didn't change what had been there before? Or is there some other evaluation that the council is making?
She did not tell me specifically what she was evaluating for. She asked for the strike through underline versions of the combined documents so that she could see the change. I'm going to call them changes. They're not changes, but the consolidations that have been made. There were some changes in terms of the terminology we use, so, but not changes to the regulations. I keep trying to emphasize that.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on that? If not, then I guess we're on to the comprehensive plan update.
Okay, so the committees are continuing to meet. They are in the midst of their discussions about Goal 5, which deals with natural resources, open spaces, historic resources, quarry and aggregate mining. And so it's a very complex goal, and there's a lot of substance to it. So we are taking it very slowly. We had initially scheduled 3 months to look at this, but most likely it's going to be significantly longer than that. And there will be a presentation tomorrow night as well to the Board of Commissioners, giving them an update on the comprehensive plan process. One thing that we're finding is that we're having members resign for various reasons. And especially in the Elsie Jewell Seaside Rural Committee, we've had, I believe, 4 resignations from that committee right now, and I think we're down to 3 members. So we'll probably be going back out shortly to do some additional recruitment. So if you do know people who live or work or own property in the Elsie Jewell Seaside Rural area, which is pretty much all of the South County exclusive of the Southwest Coastal community, we would greatly appreciate if you would get that word out on the street. That's my update for that, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
What's the main reason for people resigning from the situations here? What's everybody resigning for? Is there a common theme?
Some people have said that it's just because of personal issues and not explained any further.
Yeah.
Some people have just, I believe, because of circumstances in the world right now, are just feeling overwhelmed. Some people just have written back and said, I'm sorry, I cannot longer really focus on this process, or it's too overwhelming for me right now, and they didn't feel that they could make the commitment that they felt was needed.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I mean, this COVID-19 has put a pressure on a lot of people in a lot of situations. How are we going to overcome the loss of institutional knowledge? Have we got any way to do that?
Well, in a way, there's not too much knowledge that will be lost as in terms of how this process has progressed so far, because we had done 4 months, 5 months, 6 months of it before we had that break in the COVID lockdown. So luckily we weren't near the very end of this process or deep into the middle of it. So I think there's still some time to bring people up to speed. But I think people who do decide to come on right now, there will be a learning curve for them. And, staff is willing to be here and answer questions and help explain how we've progressed so far in the process. But there will be a lot of self-initiation that committee members will have to take on to help understand where we're at in the process right now.
Yeah. Okay.
I have a question on that. Just a real specific question on reasons for resigning. I understand that many people just can't put up with the electronic meeting format very well. They either don't have good connectivity, or it's just not something they want to engage in. It's not as like meeting face to face. And it doesn't sound like people have offered that as a reason so far, but I wonder, I'm kind of really concerned about the issue on a countywide basis of the importance of having good bandwidth and internet connections to allow people to engage more easily and fluidly, and even maybe having a free class up at the college to show people how to do it if they're apprehensive about or don't have knowledge of how to do it easily. I'm just really concerned, and I think it would be a good idea if you kept track and even asked people if they resign, if that's been an issue and what their feeling is about it, so that we can get enough of a case together to go to the state and demand that more attention be given to rural communities on their broadband connections. That's all I was going to suggest.
Okay, and
Nadia,
we,
you had something to say?
I'll let Gail respond and then add a comment.
that's fine. Go ahead, Commissioner.
I just I wanted to suggest that maybe when people resign that you ask them if they have suggestions for replacements, because places like Highway 53 are so remote that the people who know that those people the best are the people on that road. So I saw that I just was looking at that list today in the county commission packet for tomorrow about, you know, who's in every committee and the absences and the resignations. And it's anyway, so I saw one person on Highway 53 that had resigned. That person probably knows other people that might be interested. So if maybe that would be an extra step. I don't know if you've tried that, Gail, but to just say, hey, you know, I understand your position. Do you have any ideas of people who might be interested to take your place?
Okay, thank you. Those are both good suggestions.
All right. I've just got a slight office requirement here. I need 60 seconds, please. I'm sorry. I got to step away for 60 seconds. You're trying to get me 14.
Oh, that's live.
You know, I noticed that Robert Strickland had connected for a brief moment and then he disappeared. Is he trying to get through to us and can't, or what's the deal?
I am not seeing anyone popping up on my screen. I don't see him coming up.
He was on for maybe 30 seconds, I happened to notice, and then he blinked off again. And that's my concern, that people are getting left out by this process.
Okay, well, we called the roll and he wasn't there. But anyway, thank you. Sorry for that. I'm back on board again. So are we on to special projects update then?
Okay, so there are several special projects I wanted to provide updates on this morning. The first one is the Clatsop Plains Elk project, which is being handled by Solutions Oregon. There will be a Board of Commissioners work session about this topic on September 1st at noon. And that work session will cover not only the status of the work that's been done on the elk project, but also some of the larger issues that we're encountering right now in the Clatsop Plains area. Most notably would be the decision by Warrenton not to provide water for additional residential development in that area at this time. The other item of note with the elk project is that the final document is called a Declaration of Cooperation, which spells out the commitments that the cities and the counties and the various agencies involved in this process will commit to over the upcoming years to implement the solutions that we've come up with. And that document is expected to be completed in October 2020 and then brought before the Board of Commissioners around that time. On July 28th, this is a new topic now, talking about short-term rentals. Staff conducted a meeting with residents in the Falcon Cove Beach area about the short-term rental issues that we've been having several code complaints about. There will be 2 board work sessions to discuss this. The first one is September 1st at noon, and that one will be to report back on the comments from the meeting and the input that we received from the residents, and to also discuss with the Board of Commissioners the purchase of a third-party compliance software program that would be able to handle complaints about short-term rentals on a 24/7 basis. The second work session is scheduled for September 9th at 5 p.m. before the regular board meeting. And that one will be an initial discussion of possible ordinance revisions to address issues that have been identified regarding short-term rentals. Next special project to take note of, the Board of Commissioners is working right now on a strategic plan. Their next work session on that topic is going to be August 25th at 1 p.m. We have a Transportation and Growth Management grant from 2019 to develop a tsunami evacuation facilities improvement plan. That consultant now has been selected in July of this month or this year, and we are right now in the process of negotiating the final scope of work and budget, and that project is expected to be completed late in 2021. Staff and the county also received a technical assistance award from Department of Land Conservation and Development to do a child care code barriers project. What this does is it's an audit basically by DLCD on the county's rules regarding the establishment of residential and commercial child care facilities. So they're looking at Clatsop County and several other incorporated cities throughout the state and doing a code review. They are expected to complete their code review and send us back comments and a final evaluation either late this month or possibly into September. After that time, then the county would be able to prepare any code revisions that might be needed to address that issue. And then finally, the Clatsop County Resiliency Project, which consists of the purchase of the sorting yard to transfer or relocate the public works facilities out of the inundation zone, among several other possible alternative lifeline route projects in the future. There will be a public meeting scheduled about that on August 13th at 5:30 p.m. This one is a bit different type of meeting format. We're going to be trying out the GoToWebinar platform as opposed to GoToMeeting. GoToWebinar does have a raise hand function, and it's a little bit easier to keep track of questions and make sure that people's questions are being answered. After the meeting, I have all this information on an information sheet, so I will email that to all of you, and there will be a registration link as well for the resiliency meeting. That's my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I just had one question on how the implementation of Warrington's reticulation process outside of city limits. They're supposedly cutting off reticulation or water rights or water provision, I should say, to any properties in the county outside of Warrington city limits. How does that affect your elk program?
So the tie between everything is Clatsop Plains is the place where we have designated development transfers to be done, so to increase density out in that area. So
Right.
that what we're seeing is that if you've got an area zoned lake and wetland, or not lake and wetland, but you have an area that's zoned for development but maybe contains a significant amount of wetlands, in the past what has been done is that the development rights from that property have been transferred over to properties in the Clatsop Plains, and then that sending property has been rezoned to a designation such as open space, parks and recreation, or something similar. And then that increased density goes over to the Clatsop Plains, and where you're seeing these subdivisions come in now, Dune Estates and West Dunes, and those are the two that I think are under development right now.
Right.
So they can go down to the 1 acre lots. And so what we have seen now is Westlake, which now is called Dune Estates, but it came in originally as Westlake Village. They have completed phase 1 infrastructure improvements and are selling lots and building houses or placing manufactured homes out there. Phase 2 was just given the go-ahead to begin their infrastructure work, but we were just notified that phase 3 right now, Warrington, even though they were aware of phase 3 coming up, has decided that they won't be serving it with their water system. So right now what's going to happen is that is going to be placed on hold. And then going back to the elk again, the more density that you put in that area, the more you're setting up potential conflicts between human and elk. You're obviously taking up their habitat. You're not making sure, or it hasn't been made sure, that the open space that's required is connected and useful as an elk corridor or any other type of wildlife corridor. So there are a lot of different issues that are interconnected that need to be looked at in a broader scope over a longer term, not just by the county, but also the cities of Gerhart and Warrenton.
That's fair enough for you to say that, but didn't we consider that when we approved that subdivision? Because I remember we brought the elk and the spotted butterfly and a few other things into the equation, and we considered that. I would have thought that the approval for, what do they call it, West Sands now? Or the Dunes? Or,
Dune Estate. Dune Estate.
They call it the Dunes? Yeah. I thought that, on the initial process for them moving forward, we considered those options for elk and spotted butterfly.
Yeah. So there have been considerations. I can't speak specifically to Dune Estates because that was approved in 2016, and
Right.
But things have changed out there, and we've also had discussions about new subdivisions coming in, such as cottages at Gerhart, which is just on the south side of Highlands Boulevard. So, they're required to keep 30% open space in a subdivision, but if it's not a usable space, or the elk population has increased, or additional developments have come in that may not be part of a platted subdivision, but may be part of a partition, or someone has had a vacant lot that now they've decided to develop. So there are a lot of different variables there. And obviously development in Warrenton has decreased their capacity to be able to supply water outside of their city limits. So even though things may have been looked at 4 years ago, a lot has happened that has changed the circumstances on the ground.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Gail, for clarifying that. So now on to project status
Commissioner
report.
Gardner, sorry,
Oh,
Chair.
I'm sorry.
Commissioner Gardner
I'm
has a
sorry.
question.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, you don't have the hands up function. Here's the real hand. So I continue to be a little confused about which land use concerns come to us and which go directly to the board. And so I'm wondering why ordinance revisions to the short-term rental ordinance would go directly to the board rather than starting in the Planning Commission.
The ordinance itself is not going on September 9th. It's just a discussion about changes that the board would like to see. The short-term rental ordinance is actually in the Clatsop County Code. It's not in the zoning code. So it's technically not considered a land use issue, even though understandably it affects what happens on the land. But this is just merely a discussion for the board to begin looking at items in the county code that they may want to revise. If they do identify items that should be changed, those would not necessarily come back to the Planning Commission because the Planning Commission didn't originally approve them because they're not in the zoning code or the standards document or the comprehensive plan.
Okay, well, and so we had identified as something we wanted to work on in terms of affordable housing, some potential changes to the code. And so that's what we're recommending tomorrow night. So like, how do those tie together? Because of course, affordable housing and what's allowed on the properties are all a part of that. So I could see why, like if it's talking about compliance and processes, that it wouldn't necessarily make sense to, be part of us and our recommendations to the board. But if it gets into, some of the things that we were talking about, then it might make sense that it kind of be a collaboration.
Right, and Commissioner Gardner, I can't address that until I hear the board's discussion, and I certainly could not speak for the board at this point.
I just have a questions on the resiliency project meeting. I have heard that we're trying to get a also a in-person meeting as well as the online meeting. Is that still going on?
So the last that I have heard is that there was a request to eliminate or to have the online meeting, but to also allow 20 hand-picked residents to attend in person at the fairgrounds. I am not the person who makes that decision, nor am I the person or is development, the department running this project. But my understanding is the decision at this time is to stay strictly with the online meeting at this point.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Gail. Then we'll look at the project status report. Does anybody have questions on that? I just had one on the McVeigh livery. Is that kind of stopped now because of recent damage from an auto collision?
No, he actually had the property listed for sale prior to that, and it was about 2 weeks ago when we received an update. One of the building inspectors had been by because there had been an auto collision that did some fairly significant damage to the exterior of the building, particularly the overhead canopy.
Wow. Okay. Some people have a hard time starting a business. Okay, so if there are no more questions on that, let's go to the other business, section 3. Is that what I'm looking at?
Yes, that's correct, Chair.
Okay.
So this item was primarily provided for information only to let you know what was sent to the Board of Commissioners for their work session tomorrow evening. Again, I want to thank Commissioner Gardner because she's the one who really took the notes and put together that summary of your Planning Commission's actions back on July 14th. I did, as I pointed out in my email, make a few changes, particularly related to things that were related more specifically to incorporated areas, and I put my explanation for that in the email. Otherwise, it's presented for informational purposes only, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Well, I'd like to thank Nadia, first of all, for doing that. I thought it was a good summation. And thanks, Nadia.
Yes.
The involvement was definitely good. Pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, I'm not of course, an expert in homeless, but I will say there's a variety of different terms that are used for it. I think historically people have talked about homelessness, but a lot more currently people they're actually experts in the field use things like unsheltered people or houselessness, because there's a good amount of people that live in tents and that is their home, and so it's the nod to the reality of a lot of, unfortunately, our Clatsop County and residents being unsheltered but having a place that they consider homes. So that's something we can just think about going forward when we're talking about this really important issue.
I had a, I have a question I wanted to bring up around House Bill 2001, and that relates to this whole issue around rezoning that's been enacted statewide. And in reading through that bill, it's probably a dozen pages long. I find it quite confusing, and it's partly just the way these kind of bills are written up and put online for people to see. I was wondering if there's any way that the county council could spend a few minutes at the next planning commission meeting explaining what this bill means to Clatsop County. There's so many sections that then refer to some subsection and how that subsection reflects whether or not the issue in the main section applies to the county in question. And there's several different categories of population and urban versus non-urban versus urban boundary versus metropolitan area. It's all quite confusing to me. I don't know if most people have read this and it all makes perfect sense, but for me it doesn't. And so I don't even know what we're supposed to do as a county, except I can see that there's a timeline to have this in place this year, I think, for a county unless they apply for an extension. So is that going to be part of the work session tomorrow night, or is there a way for somebody to come and explain this in clear English in about 3 minutes, what it means to us in the county?
So it is not scheduled to be part of tomorrow night's discussion, and I can certainly have county council come and speak at your meeting in September. But my general understanding is that it's not going to affect the unincorporated areas. It's going to apply only to cities with populations greater than 10,000. And at this point, we do not have a city greater than 10,000 in the county.
Yes, I know that, but there are places in this document that mention smaller populations, and it's not clear to me the way it's written whether it applies to us or not. I can't cite the exact section, but it's in here talking about cities as small as 2,500 people, and I think even 1,000 people. So that's what I mean. It's just, to me, it's a very confusing document, and that's, you know, my problem. I should be able to read the English language and figure out what it means, but I do find it quite challenging.
Is that the multifamily housing requirement bill, Chris? Like the density bill? I missed that at the beginning.
That's the one that requires duplexes, triplexes, and quadruplexes in cities to be allowed in any zoning district that allows a single family residence. And there's thresholds for when it applies to specific cities. So the larger the city, you have to allow more types of housing units. So everything up to a quadruplex. I think some of the smaller jurisdictions, it may have to allow things like a duplex, but it does not apply to the unincorporated area. I will bring in county council in September to have her give you a full explanation of the bill.
Yeah,
I
think
greatly
that'd be
appreciate
helpful.
that.
Okay, Lam, you wanted to talk?
Yes. Since Nadia wrote up the proposal that we have talked about the ADU, and it occurred to me that ADUs are more like a long-term process. For an ADU costs anywhere between about $70,000 to $100,000 to build, and for a landowner, that means they probably would have to charge market price for these units. I mean, it'd be great during a economic upturn and everybody's doing well. People can rent that out fairly easily. But for this crisis that we're coming up, then when we're talking about anywhere between 1,000 to 2,000 families that are being potentially evicted from their homes, and I don't see how that can resolve the issues. But in thinking of this, I have been doing a little bit more research, trying to figure out how we can to be able to to go on. Is well, I have talked to a little bit with some nonprofits and trying to figure out how a county could partner with these nonprofits and figured out how we maybe come up with a pilot projects that can work for people. And I mean, I guess my vision is like having to be able to have some sort of pods of like little communities where people can thrive rather just just to survive, not just to survive but to thrive. People taking care of each other, take care of the kids and elderly, and so that's kind of my vision. And I'm hoping at some point is asking for some sort of blessing from the rest of commissioners to do more research and more reaching out to different nonprofits and figuring out how we might be able to go forward with this.
Ron, do you want to connect with Lam about the work that you've been doing?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I just missed the meeting they had last night there. There's meetings the second Monday of each month at 6 p.m. and they're by Zoom now. And this is the group that Pastor Bill at the Presbyterian Church, Bill Van Nostrum at the Presbyterian Church in Astoria has gotten going. And Andy Davis is now, I guess, the project manager. We must be moving forward. So that would be fine. And if Commissioner Kwong wants to contact me or contact the pastor, that would be great, because we are very inclusive and we'll do anything we can to move the ball forward for increasing affordable housing.
Yeah, that would be great.
Do you know how to get a hold of me or Pastor Bill?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Would you want to give me your information now, or?
Yeah, I'll just go ahead and give you my cell phone and I text. It's 503.
Yeah.
741 6085.
Okay.
And if you give me your email, I'll forward that to Pastor Bill. We have some really good heads on the group.
Okay, you guys remember we're recording this. You've got the communications. You can do this offline.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Gal. We on to 4.
Yes, we're on to item 4. So recently, I know Commissioner Kwong has had some discussions with me, basically to orient himself to the Planning Commission and the work that you do. I've also had a couple of other questions from some other people about whether or not we have a formal process in place to onboard incoming planning commissioners. So I spoke with staff who have been here for a while, and we dug up a very old copy of what was previously used many years ago for the Planning Commissioner Training Handbook, and that information was provided to you in your packet. Specifically, the information that I'm trying to get from the planning commissioners today is threefold. First of all, you all have a very diverse background and approaches to how you have come to this planning commission board, and what you hope to take out of it, and the mark that you hope to make on the community. And you come at it from different levels of experience with local government. So the 3 things that I'm looking for, first of all, the commission handbook that was included in your packet, is that the information that you would want to continue to have, albeit updated, continue to receive in your planning commission handbook? So that's question 1. Question 2 is, when, as a new commissioner, either thinking back to your first appointment or thinking about people who might come on board in the future, what orientation do you want to have directly from staff other than us presenting you with a handbook? And then third, as commissioners who may have more experience under your belts, what additional types of training sessions would you like to have staff arrange for you? So those are the three questions that I'd really like to have answered today, please.
Who wants to be first to put some process into this? Nadia, you got comments? You're my go-to person.
Yeah, well, I mean, I looked through it. It's crazy, the amount. Of course, nobody's going to read all that, especially in that format. So I think it's better to just try to keep the orientation up front, you know, pretty short and sweet, especially to the law, and then to share the state, like the handbook and things like that, the materials that come from the state or the, you know, part of the water district too. So it's like, you know, have that statewide districts, you know, just like, you know, public officials trainings are really important, but maybe it's like you have an initial basic information, and then throughout the year, invite people to participate in trainings and things like that that are available over time, rather than inundating them with all that information up front.
I agree wholeheartedly with what you said. Gail and I had a conversation this morning before this meeting, and that's pretty much what I iterated. You can be inundated with too much information, but my point of view was I like that we've got this in an electronic form as a reference, because many of these documents I've seen over the 27 years or so that I've been here, and I think that it's a great reference. Like I said to Gail, you can't read it all, you can't absorb it all. You're going to be an attorney for land use if you know it all. So I think that it's a great reference, though, because Robert and I are going through the shutting down of the Kippanon Water Control Board, and some of the issues that have come up are tort claims. And so I was pleased to read on page 201 their official wording on tort. So I think it's a great reference, but I agree with you. I think that a simple form, and perhaps the oldest document that we have on what the procedures are for the Planning Commission, should be the first document that's given. And then that gives everybody a rough outline of what they're doing. And then as they go through the process, they should be able to make comments to staff, ask questions amongst ourselves, perhaps when we get back to a face-to-face discussion, and always be able to get the answers that you're asking from staff, because that's what staff are there for. They are the experts, and they're the ones that can answer the questions. So Kwan, as the latest member, do you have any comments on what's going on?
Well, I am so new to this governmental process. I think this is, I don't know what I don't know, and I've never had much interactions with the county other than just going to pay my taxes. So I guess it's kind of difficult at this moment in time because of the virus, but having an introduction or to be taken around to the county office to meet and talk with a few people would be helpful, and which actually Commissioner
What do you listen to? Right now, the planning commission. Oh, that's.
I'm sorry. Commissioner Sullivan did that with me yesterday, so that was fairly helpful.
Good. Yeah.
I could chime in here just briefly. I agree that this material was a lot to try to go through, but it is great to have it now available electronically. And I agree with keeping it short for the initial introduction to anybody. And I found the two most helpful pages were kind of one pagers by kind of reflections by Nick Lebec of, I guess he's actually talking about the reflections of somebody from the LCDC. And it's on page 46. And it's just kind of a real general view of what you want to keep in mind when you're in a meeting, and it's real nuts and bolts kind of stuff. Like you have to be willing to hear opposing viewpoints and to always think the best of people that are presenting before you, even if they're kind of combative, and all those kinds of good advice there. And there was another one on page 48 and goes over to 49. And those just one pagers, some of that really short stuff put together with, I think it's important that any new commissioner actually read the bylaws that we have, which are very short. What are they, like 5 pages or something? Just to know how we're organized. And I think when at one point years ago, somebody handed out to the commission little pocket editions of Robert's Rules of Order, which is kind of a pain to go through, but there's a few points in there that make a lot of sense in a meeting and why we do things the way we do, and the importance of making motions and seconding and finishing a motion before you take on something else. Just knowing how a meeting is run, whether strict rules of Roberts are followed or not, I found it very helpful. And then going back, I think Nadia mentioned the legal aspects. For example, I didn't know you had to file an ethics kind of report every year about your financial holdings to show that you're not, I guess, making decisions that might benefit you some way financially. Just to let people know when that comes due and the importance of following up on it, and any other legal things that you're supposed to do as a commissioner.
Well, the Ethics Commission is going to contact you, Chris. I mean, you're listed. They'll send you an email. I mean, they're doing it electronically now. So
yes, I know that, but it'd be nice just to be upfront about it and let a new person on board know this is coming. And
right,
you know.
yeah. Okay, I think you bring up a lot of good points. John, did you have any comments on it? Or Robert, do you have any comments on it?
I just recall in the land before time, you know, DLCD would offer a course down at the Seaside City Hall on how to function as a planning commissioner.
Right. Yes.
It was for anybody. I can't imagine what that contained for a one-day instruction. You know, I think we're in a time where, you know, most people in the county don't have a feel for why planning exists, you know, and has for whatever 40 years or whatever it is. You know, so I think we're in an odd situation of looking for specifics when we're also more directly dealing with a way that doesn't even understand, you know, it figures that we're interfering with people's lives
right.
by planning. So I'm saying it. I understand Lama's question of, gee, where do we go from here? But I think it goes back to you and me, Bruce, who've been here forever. It is a puzzlement because it's not simply looking at the old land use goals of the state of Oregon that ostensibly guide everything, but it gets to be, what is the reality of, where the word planning was eliminated from the entire Clatsop County administrative structure. I don't mean to ramble, but it's yes, it is a curious question of what does it mean to be a planning commissioner in an era where kind of almost who cares about what Governor what's his name did long ago to create planning in Oregon. I went to a gathering where everybody there had been involved in planning for 40 years. And then the sense was, we have a lost generation that it is not going to change their opposition to planning. And it's kind of like we need to start with the kindergartners and rebuild what in the world is planning? Why does it exist? So that's, I don't know what you can squeeze out of that, but yeah, I think it's important, but I don't think it's really a matter of, okay, Lam, here's how we do it. Because I think if you got Mark Quayla in the room to explain it to us, it might be a rather different perspective than someone else.
Well, that's why I'd rather have DLCD put on one of their shows, because they kind of concentrated on the rule of law, also on how you are to conduct yourselves at the meeting and the ethics of being a planning commissioner. And I think those are very important aspects of what we do. Anyway, John, I think you wanted to say something.
Yes, I was on pause before. I apologize for that. It seems to automatically go to mute. Mute when I didn't hit the mute button. So let me first say I do have a somewhat skewed point of view on this topic because I have experience and studies and legal work in the area of land use. But I like the idea of a organized and coherent presentation with maybe some give and take, and the DLCD would be the organization to do that. But a primer, if you can keep things to 2 pages, it just seems like we're headed in that direction. The primers that can be easily digested and hit the highlights with links, maybe, since we're online a lot, for further information. The third part is, and I join Bruce in this as sort of a print freak, and if I really get excited about something, obsessively print freakish, so to speak, that information is there, it should be there, and in a coherent and unbiased way available to new commissioners. And I think the point that Chris makes is a good one too, because if you have a lot of business with government, with state government, with local government, well, that ethics thing could be a real pain in the patootie. And I get nervous, even though I just get nervous filling it out because it seems so officious. And if you make an omission or a negligently incorrect statement, when here's the hounds of Baskerville. But so that's not something to belabor, but that would be a good thing to let people know, even maybe before they accept. You will have to do this, because then you can go through the vetting process and they say, oh, no. I mean, if you had a bunch of income from a bunch of sources, it could be intimidating. You know, it's particularly to a certain mindset. This is my business. I don't want to do this, so I don't guess I don't want to be a planning commissioner. That's just something maybe it should be vetted out the front end, but not overemphasized nor underemphasized. I also brought for a while Robert's Rules of Orders with me to the meetings, but I've gone to so many meetings that I've sort of incorporated them. But you can never have too much of that procedural information, so that everybody can contribute to the flow of ideas and problem solving.
Bring up a lot of good points, John. I think that the main thing I've learned over the years is that you learn something in every meeting. You're continually learning. You never know it all. There's always some new scenario. And if you keep an open mind, you'll keep learning. So thank you. Anybody else want to have say on this? I think.
John, I just want to, excuse me, Bruce, I just want to say that when I joined the commission, I met with Jennifer Bunch, and she gave me a book called The Orientation Manual for Elected and Appointed Officials. I don't know if they still hand that out or not, but it has a lot of good information about the whole county and the Planning Commission and other areas. So that's very helpful. But also the orientation with Jennifer helped tremendously. And I really want to point out and what Chris's point was on those pages 46, 48, and 49, because those are very important too.
All right. Thank you, Myrna. All right. So any other discussion going on that we've got? Gail?
I see Commissioner Strickland and Commissioner Kwong each have their hands raised.
Oh,
okay.
Mine is just a quick one. It took me 15 minutes to get into this, 20 minutes, till 10:15 to get into this meeting, where I've never had any trouble. You know, I started at about 5 minutes of 10. Just it's usually a one click. Here I am. So I apologize for the delay. I don't know why there were malfunctions, but I don't know if anyone else had any difficulty. You know, I copied and pasted the same little link that came from the PDF file. But anyway, I didn't mean to be 15 minutes late, but I had trouble getting into this meeting.
And I know why. Probably I had the same problem, but I think what you did was you clicked on the blue highlighted new go to meeting instead of join the meeting. And I almost made that mistake by going to join the meeting. I got right on. I didn't have a problem. So maybe you clicked on the one down the bottom is new go to meeting where it's got to download and start off again. Yeah. Gail, any other comments on questions on us for this? Did we answer your questions?
I believe Commissioner Kwong asked a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see your hand.
I don't have anything. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Then I just had one follow-up question for Commissioner Patrick. Just what topics did you and Jennifer cover in your orientation?
The orientation manual on elected officials, and then we talked about the procedure for the Planning Commission. And then if you miss things like if you miss a meeting, you should go in and read the minutes or check with somebody and get some information about it beforehand so that you're up to date when you attend a meeting, that sort of thing.
Okay, thank you.
You got something to say? Go.
I have one quick point. I think we ought to establish kind of a general rule that when we're not speaking, we mute our microphones, because I'm getting a lot of background noise, and it sometimes completely blocks what the speaker is saying. So I think muting when you're not actively talking is a good thing to do.
I agree with that. Okay, so Gail, if you don't have any other questions, I guess we're ready to adjourn. Do you have any other questions?
I do not. Thank you all for your feedback.
Okay, thank you everybody for attending, and we'll line you up for September. Thank you all. Adjourn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.